Okay, folks, so after you have created the first part of the assignment, where you're just dealing with the value study, and then you're going to be working towards that second part of the study of the assignment, where you've created the the glazing, where you're choosing the color to actually go over the surface there. The third part of the study is going to be, let me move the light around here. Third part of the study is going to be choosing analogous and complementary color harmonies. All right. So you're going to make a choice on analogous color harmonies. So your analogous color harmonies are any colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. So let's imagine if you're going to be taking yellow, then you can either go yellow, orange into reds. Those are going to be analogous colors. Or you can go yellows and greens into, yellows into your greens. All right. So that will be your analogous colors with the yellows. And that can happen at any point on the color wheel. So think about four ranges. All right. Staying within a family of colors. All right. So you can move around and just look at the range of colors that you can have. If those colors are close to each other on the color wheel, then they're going to be considered analogous colors. So you're going to be creating an analogous color scheme or analogous color harmony. The last is going to be a complementary color harmony. So that would be taking one color and then drawing a line directly opposite to that other side. And that color that's going to be directly opposite is going to be that color's complement. Okay, so if I have yellow, directly opposite of that is green. Let's say if I take blue, directly opposite of that is orange. If I take red, directly opposite of that is green. All right, and so on and so forth. So you're going to be taking an analogous color harmony, and then you're going to be taking a complementary color harmony. Now, the second choice that you're going to be making is whether you're going to be choosing the either one of the color harmonies, either the analogous color harmony or the complementary color harmony. And you're going to be choosing whether you're going to be dealing with high key. All right. So you're going to be dealing with either high key or low key. All right. High key means basically that your color is going to be full strength, as if they've actually been shown in full pure white light. So usually you want to think of those colors as almost colors that are directly from from the tube. If you're thinking of reds, yellows, blues, and oranges, and so on and so forth. All right. And then from that, you want to make a choice on whether you're going to have the high key analogous color harmony or a high key complementary color harmony. All right. So whichever one you choose, if you have high key analogous, then all of your colors are going to be very strong, very pure. All right. Not many dull colors are going to be used. Not many dark colors are going to be used within the high key. And if you do use high key dark colors, then those are going to be your blues and violets, so on and so forth. Okay. If you choose to use a high key complementary color harmony, then you want to try your best not to mix the colors too much. All right. So if we mix two of your primary colors, two complementary colors, then the result of that is going to be a neutral color. And with high key color schemes or high key uses of color, you don't really want to use neutrals too much at all. All right. And then next to that, you want to deal with the idea of choosing low key. And low key means that you're going to basically have darker. All right. So low key means basically you're going to have darker colors and duller colors. So dark and dull for low key, intense and bright for high key. All right. So your choices are going to be choosing an analogous color harmony and choosing the colors for that, and then choosing a complementary color harmony. And then when you make those choices of those colors, that's when you go in and you make a choice of whether you're going to be using high key or low key. Okay. So the choice is yours. So on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose an analogous color harmony. And within an analogous color harmony, I'm going to be using my flat brush. A bright brush. I'm going to be using a round brush, and I'm going to be using my filbert brush. Okay, so we have the filbert. Filbert is kind of rounded at the top, but it has a flattened ferrule. The round brush has a rounded ferrule. And then the bright brush looks very similar to the flat brush. Only difference is that the flat brush has much longer bristles than the bright brush. Okay. All right. So I'm going to be using these, and we're going to go the same route that we did the other time. We're going to be basically sketching a line about an inch below the midpoint. Same circle. All right, so a large circle in space. Just impeding into the actual line that you've drawn. And then you can sketch your cast shadow. The cast shadow is always going to touch the bottom of the circle. All right, it's not going to be lower. It's not going to be down here away from the circle. It's not going to be up here. You want to think that the circle that you're creating is going to be a ball that's touching the table. And just as you look at any cast shadow, it's going to start where that form touches the actual surface. Okay, so we're going to use that. All right, and then from there, let's go ahead and start it out. Okay, all right, so I'm going to be using the warm tones, your yellows, your oranges, your reds, and those are going to be my complementary, not my complementary, but my analogous colors that I'm going to use in the analogous color scheme. But the best thing to do to start off is, just like we started off with a ground in the first one, where we had the gray, that kind of served as a ground so that you could create lights and darks away from that, from that gray. We're going to do something somewhat similar to that on our complementary and our analogous color harmonies. We're going to be creating a ground, but that ground is going to be a neutral that we can actually create intense colors and duller or darker colors from. Okay, so I'm going to basically just create a ground of a terracotta, knowing that we have red as being one of our colors, and I'm just going to use this terracotta, which is a warm neutral tone, as a ground to work from. Okay, real simple. Just one color. I'm just going to make some areas a little bit thinner and some areas a little bit more opaque. The thinner the color is, the more that you're going to be able to see white through it. And then once you actually start to make those more intense colors, and on this, I'm painting as if I'm supposed to be painting all all vertical brush strokes. On this, you don't have to paint vertical brush strokes. You can actually paint your strokes as loose as you want. Okay, and that's another choice that I want you all to make on having either loose brush strokes or refined or more clean brush strokes. All right, so I'm going to make more loose brush strokes on this. I'm going to go into my sphere and kind of create the shadowed area here. And the same thing as you do with the other, once that brush becomes too large to work with, then you actually begin to move down into a different brush or a smaller brush. So I'm just kind of moving quickly, trying to get as much in as I can, as quickly as I can. And one thing that you can do is you can actually take your brush and clean most of the pigment out of the brush and leave a little bit of water in the brush. So right now I have no pigment on my brush at all. So I'm gonna leave a little bit of water in the brush, and then I'm just gonna basically paint some of that pigment away to kind of create a lighter value that we can kind of work from. That same thing can happen up here. So So as for right now, all of the information that we need is there in the actual painting. I mean, the sphere or the ball is there. All right. Everything pretty much looks like it's going to look. Okay. And from that, that's where we actually start building the rest of our painting. Okay. So that's right now. You want to do that as quickly as possible. You want to render all of the information in as quickly as you can. Now with, excuse me, with high key colors, that doesn't mean that you only have to paint from the tube. You can still use white and black, but you want to use them sparingly, and you want to, you want to use black sparingly, and you want to control the intensity. So this is about intensity. So you want to control the intensity of the scene based upon how much of any other color that you're going to be using. All right. So for the shadow and the cast shadow, you can still go in and use a little bit of black, but you don't want to use too much of it because it's going to make everything a little bit too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the area around the ball a bit of a red. And right now I'm using my bright brush, I'm working kind of fast. And I'm not trying to move really slow or really worry about trying to be too careful. You want to work with some confidence. All right. And no, it's not sped up. I'm literally painting this as quickly as I can. That is based upon a little bit of confidence that I have when I'm painting. You want to actually paint with a bit of confidence. All right. You don't want to paint too scared. All right. If you make mistakes, that's a good thing. It's all right to make some mistakes. Because this is a painting 1 class, and there's no expectation that you're going to already know how to go about painting in such a way that you don't make any mistakes. I've been doing this as long as I have, and I still make some mistakes. Mistakes are good because it lets you know that you're not completely, if there's no mistakes, then basically it's time to put the brushes down, all right? Because you've actually hit it. You've made it. You don't have to actually worry about anything else. You don't have to learn anything else. You already have all of the painting technique and style and all of that you need. And yeah, it's time to put the brushes down. But we know that that's not going to be something that happens. So we want to make sure that we're giving a little bit of giving ourselves a little bit of an okay to say that we can make some mistakes. All right. So I'm even going to go into some of my oranges here. I'm going to build a little bit of a base down at the bottom. I'm going to use some of this for my shadow here. Using a red orange. Now I'm going to start bringing in some of those yellows, and you'll also see that I'm waiting for some time to bring in any whites or blacks or anything like that. So I'm just going to start really bringing in these intense colors and try to get the colors in before I worry about trying to get lights and darks in too much. So lights and darks are kind of already there. Your yellow is a light value color. Your red is a little bit of a mid-range value color, but it's considered a dark color in this particular piece. So we're creating a sense of a stronger sense of color to start off with, as opposed to trying to go into just the lights and darks. I'm going to put, you always want to put a little bit of your colors throughout your composition to make it unified. You don't want any one area to be a lot more sort of alone than any other area, for lack of a better word. You want your entire composition to feel like everything belongs. Notice I'm still using my bright brush because this bright brush is just a little bit smaller than that flat brush that I had. And so I'm going to use this until I get to a point where this brush also becomes a little bit of a hindrance and I can't really move the way that I need to with this brush. And once that happens, then I will move to a smaller brush. And you can see that it's very warm, it's very intense at this point in time. Don't use too many shades and tints at this point, because we're really just wanting to deal with just color to start off with, not so much lights and darks. And if you get frustrated, pull yourself away from it for a few minutes and come back to it, see what the problem is, assess the issue, come back to it, work a little bit more. If you get frustrated again, walk away from it a little bit. So this is a process. This is not something that's going to happen right overnight. It's going to take practice. Put a little bit of that yellow up there so that we kind of unify everything. And now, since we've gotten to a point where color has kind of done as much as it's going to do, now we're going to start bringing in some of those values. All right, and you want to use them sparingly. You don't want to make your work appear to be less intense, because this is a high key, very light and high key composition. So we want to keep it high key, but we can use the whites in order to create a lighter value. So now when we bring that white in, you're not just bringing the white in and leaving it by itself. You want to actually blend that white in to the other colors that you're going to be using. All right, the minute you bring that in, you start really seeing that things become even more intense. Strong color is going to be happening when you bring the white in. And you want to mix that white with the other colors. You don't want to just paint the white on top of the surface. You want to mix it in with the other colors. We're not going to use much black at all. In fact, very little, very sparingly. And if you do use the black, you want to basically almost thin it down and mix it with your other color. So I'm going to mix some of my black with my red. You can kind of see that the red is going to be a little bit darker. All right, I'm going to shade it a little bit, not a lot. And I'm just going to put it in areas where it needs to be put. And I'm going to do the same thing with the shade that I did with the tint. I'm going to take more of the color and blend that color in, because I don't want this to become a low key color harmony. I want it to remain a high key color harmony. And we're only using that black to kind of create a stronger value contrast. All right. So putting that dark value next to that really begins to bring that value out a bit. And just to make sure that we have a little bit of a sense of sort of a unified feel, since we have dark value up here, then we want to also have a little bit of that dark value in our shadow, our cast shadow, I'm sorry. And then even a little bit in our actual sphere there. And I put a little bit too much, but no problem whatsoever. That's far too much of that one color. So what do we do next? We bring a little more of the yellow in to kind of help lighten that color a little bit. The color's still a little bit wet, so we're just going to bring some yellow in and blend that color in. All right, no big deal, no problem, no foul. And if we did it once, we can do it again. So I'm going to bring the yellow back in a little bit more. Still looks fairly intense. Bring a little bit of that white back in, blend it a little bit with the yellow to create that real strong light again. And then just begin to blend it around. And if you start feeling like your paint is sticky or is dragging, then you either pick up a little more water or you pick up a little more pigment. Okay. And then we're going to take a little bit of that pigment that we have and just begin to kind of play in some other areas. We want to throw some of that color around in other areas as well. Okay, so I'm going to call that finished for the complementary. And in fact, I'm going to hold off on using my round brush. We use the filbert and the bright and all of that. I'm going to hold off on using my round brush until we get to the next one. Okay, so this is going to be considered a high key analogous color harmony. All right, so the colors that we use are yellows, reds, and oranges. All right, really just use yellow and orange and then mixed in reds. Oh, sorry, yellows. I use yellows and reds, and I created the oranges and all of that range of oranges. I use a little bit of white to kind of bring in a higher light value on the sphere, and then I use a little bit of the black to suggest a little bit of a darker value. All right, so darker value is going to be shade, lighter value is going to be tint. Okay, so this is a high key analogous color harmony. All right.